Hello everyone, so right in this occasion, I'm going to present the male gaze represents female masculine, and I'm not okay with this series through Sydney's characterization. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Sahista Achadiarrohma Fajria, with the 3 last year number is 098. So let's begin the presentation by telling you the introduction. So I'm Not Okay with This series is directed by Jonathan Entwistle in 2020. It can be seen on a movie platform called Netflix. This series tells the story of a teenage girl named Sydney who struggles with the typical trials and tribulations of her high school life while dealing with the complexities of her family and sexuality that began to develop as a teenager, coupled with a mysterious power that resides within her. And next, we move on to the issue. So, the series is actually written and directed by a male director. He is Jonathan Entwistle. He introduced two main characters with two different personalities. It is Sydney and Dinah. So Sydney is described as a female masculine while Dina described as a female feminine. Sydney as a main character, she is illustrated as a young woman who are just entering puberty struggle to overcome emotional difficulties that are still unstable, particularly in holding her anger and self-control. Sydney's emotional outbursts may cause damage to their surroundings. So here are the example of the image which illustrates many situations in which Sydney is emotional and holding back her anger. And the next is the theory that will be used in this analysis is the male gaze theory by Laura Mulvey in 1989. So the term gaze itself refers to how someone or viewers describe something relating to visual media such as television, pictures, magazines, and films. Furthermore, male gaze is a theory that refers to the representation of women in media. According to the Laura Mulvey's concept, the male gaze is a condition in which women in the media are seen through the man's point of view, and women are portrayed as passive objects of man's desire. And the male gaze theory by Laura Mulvey could be viewed in three ways, such as how men look at women, how women look at other women, and how women look at themselves. Alright, and the first is how men look at women. So one of Sydney's male friends called her a fire crotch, which refers to a woman's red pubic hair. This was intended to offend Sydney, who had a stunted personality and didn't laugh at a joke. It indicates how a male sees Sydney as a woman that has nothing in a sense of humor. And the next is the scene where Brad Lewis confronting to Sydney about Dina's belonging. Brad insists to Sydney that Dina belongs to Brad. Well, normally confronting is done against male versus male. However, in this scene, in this moment, Brad Lewis is genuinely hates a woman, and he becomes the attacker who overlaps with Sydney's act. It implies that Brad is expressing his power over a woman. He showed no respect for Sydney at all. And the next scene is where it is a party which attended by lots of people, lots of Dinah, Sydney, and Brad's friend. So actually there are attended in this party altogether. So, actually, Brad Lewis is Dinah's boyfriend and everyone already know about it. Brad Lewis is described as a homophobic heterosexual male, and in this moment, he expresses his jealousy towards Sydney by revealing Sydney's sexual identity in front of several of their classmates at a party. Brad Lewis is directly mocked Sydney by saying that Sydney is pathetic full-on dyke, or it also called the lesbians. And next we'll move on to how women look at other women. So actually, these scenes illustrate how other women here refers to guidance counselors, perceive Sydney as a girl who needs treatment by engaging in therapeutic activities. It shows how the guidance counselor believes that something is wrong with Sydney's emotions and that, as the temperamental girl, she needs counseling to cope with her anger issue. The next is the scene where Sydney's mother suggests Sydney to change her sweater, but instead, Sydney's mother tells her that not changing her sweater making her look like a bad mom. So, being a good mother has nothing to do with choosing a good sweater either. From the dialogue, Sydney's mother indirectly said that wearing a bad sweater made her look like a bad mother. It shows how Sydney's mother as a woman sees Sydney as a girl who doesn't care about her appearance. The next is how women look at themselves. So this scene actually portrayed how Sydney felt after she met Dinah. And then Sydney considered herself as an independent woman that hates crowds and attention. She believes that something has changed in herself since she met Dina, and she feels much better and happy at that time. It indicates that Sydney recognized her feelings in her consciousness. Well, and the next scene, Sydney talked to himself. Why something I feel like I'm boiling inside? I am way more fucked up than I thought. In here, it portrays that Sydney believed that she was experiencing something strange. However, she knew it was all in her brain, and she was concerned on how these weird things could be possible to be happen. And the last scene is where Sydney considers that the emotion and the strange power appears under control. It means that this power controls Sydney, not Sydney controls the power. Sydney definitely felt that she was powerless over the peculiar ability she possessed when her emotions were out of control. Her emotions are what help Sydney under her control. Well, to sum up the discussion, let's jump into the conclusion. So, male gaze has a substantial impact on how people live their lives in general, but it has a particularly negative impact on women, so that the word objectification of women by men will eventually exist. The male gaze has an impact on women's perception and self-esteem in daily life, which puts pressure on women to live up to men's standards of women's branding itself. The way a woman dresses, the way a woman thinks and perceives herself and other women who might not fit the beauty standard image can all be impacted by this one. So male gaze can ultimately prevent women from being empowered and advocating for themselves while promoting self-objectification and respect for others. Alright, so this is the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention, guys. If you have any comments, critique, or questions, feel free to write it down on the column comments. Thank you!